I loved Rachel for 5 years before her brother erased me from her life with 3 sentences. I was standing in my kitchen in Columbus stirring pasta sauce when the message lit up my phone. It came from her brother Daniel's number, and it said, "Rachel doesn't want contact anymore. She asked me to tell you it's over. Respect her decision." At first, I thought it was a joke or maybe a misunderstanding. Rachel and I had argued the night before, but we were supposed to talk again the next day, like we always did. So I called her. It went straight to voicemail. I texted, no response. I tried Instagram, email, even drove to her apartment. By midnight, I realized something strange was happening. By morning, I was blocked everywhere. After 5 years together, the woman who knew every small detail of my life had disappeared without saying a single word to me. I spent the next year believing she had chosen to leave. It wasn't until almost 12 months later, sitting across from her cousin in a crowded coffee shop, that I learned the truth. Rachel had never asked her brother to send that message. My name is Emily Carter, and I was 29 years old the night my 5-year relationship ended in less than a minute. I remember the smell of garlic in the kitchen and the sound of water bubbling in the pot when my phone buzzed on the counter. The message came from Daniel, Rachel's older brother. We had never been close. Daniel was one of those men who smiled politely while silently measuring whether you deserved to exist near his family. The text said, "Rachel asked me to tell you she doesn't want contact anymore. Please respect her decision." That was it. 2 sentences that felt like they'd been copied out of a legal document. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, thinking maybe Rachel had broken her phone and asked him to explain something, so I called her immediately. It rang once and went to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I sent a text asking what was going on. No reply. 5 minutes later, another message appeared from Daniel saying, "I told you not to contact her. Rachel made her decision. Respect it." Something about the way he wrote it made my chest tighten. Rachel and I had argued the night before about a possible job she was considering in Chicago, but we had ended the conversation the same way we ended most disagreements, with a promise to talk again when we were calmer. There had been no breakup, no final words, just a normal Tuesday night. I called her 3 more times. When that didn't work, I sent an email, then a message on Instagram. Then I grabbed my jacket and drove to her apartment across town because 5 years together doesn't end through a stranger's text message. The parking lot outside her building was quiet when I arrived. Her car was gone. The windows were dark. I left a note taped to the door asking her to call me. The next morning, my messages were still unanswered, and suddenly my number was blocked. My emails bounced back. Even my social media account couldn't find her profile anymore. It was like someone had carefully erased every line connecting the two of us. I spent the next few days replaying the last conversation we had, trying to understand how a small argument could lead to complete silence. Eventually, the explanation that hurt the least started to feel like the truth. Maybe Rachel had decided to leave and didn't know how to say it herself. Maybe Daniel was just delivering the message she didn't want to send. So after a few weeks of trying to reach her and hearing nothing back, I stopped calling. I stopped texting. I packed away the photographs from our apartment and started learning how to build a life that didn't include the woman I thought I was going to marry. What I didn't know then was that Rachel had never seen a single message I sent that night. If you want to see what happened next, stay with me. And if you like stories that reveal what people try to hide, don't forget to like and subscribe. The strange thing about losing someone suddenly is how normal the rest of the world continues to feel. The same coffee shop still smells like roasted beans in the morning. Traffic still crawls through the same intersections on the way to work. Meanwhile, a person who used to exist in every part of your day disappears completely. For the first few months after Rachel vanished from my life, I kept expecting her name to appear on my phone. Every vibration made my chest tighten before I looked down and saw another email from work or a spam text from my phone carrier. I threw myself into long hours at the marketing firm where I worked and started running before sunrise just to exhaust the restless energy that used to go into our conversations.
Our mutual friends stopped mentioning Rachel after a while, the way people quietly step around a broken object in the middle of the room. By winter, the silence had become something I carried with me, instead of something I questioned. 8 months after the breakup, I was standing in line at a coffee shop downtown when I heard someone call my name. It was Rachel's cousin Megan. We hugged awkwardly and sat down at a small table near the window. For a few minutes, we talked about work and the weather like strangers pretending not to share history. Then Megan leaned forward and asked something that made the room feel suddenly smaller. "Why did you disappear like that, Emily?" Rachel was devastated. I stared at her because the sentence didn't make sense. "Disappeared," I repeated. Megan nodded slowly and said, "Rachel told everyone you broke up with her and blocked her on everything." I felt the same strange tightness in my chest that I had felt the night Daniel sent that message. I explained what had happened from my side: the text from Daniel, the blocked calls, the emails that bounced back. Megan's expression changed halfway through my explanation. "Rachel thought you left," she said quietly. "She told me she tried reaching you for weeks, but your number didn't work, and your social media accounts had her blocked." I walked out of that coffee shop 20 minutes later with one thought repeating itself in my head like a slow echo. If Rachel believed I abandoned her, and I believed she abandoned me, then someone had carefully built a wall between us, and the only person who had spoken to both of us that night was her brother Daniel. If you want to see what happened next, stay with me. And if you like stories that reveal what people try to hide, don't forget to like and subscribe.
It took me 3 days to gather the nerve to call Rachel after that conversation with Megan. My thumb hovered over her contact name for almost 10 minutes before I finally pressed the button. When she answered the phone, her voice sounded exactly the same as it had a year earlier. "Emily." The way she said my name carried a quiet confusion that told me immediately she hadn't expected to hear from me again. I asked her one question. "Did you tell Daniel to send me that message last year?" There was a long pause on the other end of the call before she spoke again. "What message?" I read the text word for word. When I finished speaking, Rachel inhaled sharply, like someone who had just realized they had been standing in the wrong room for a very long time. "Emily, I never told him to send that." Rachel explained that the last thing she remembered from that night was texting me after our argument, asking if we could talk the next day. When she didn't hear back, she assumed I had decided to end the relationship and blocked her out of anger. Weeks passed before the silence felt permanent. While she was telling me this, a memory slowly rearranged itself in my mind. Daniel had visited her apartment that same night. Rachel confirmed it when I asked. He stopped by to check on her after the argument. That was the moment everything finally clicked into place. Later that evening, Rachel confronted her brother. Daniel admitted what he had done almost immediately. While Rachel was in the shower that night, he had picked up her phone, sent the message to me pretending it came from her, blocked my number on both of our phones, and deleted the conversation. Then he told Rachel I had texted him saying the relationship was over and I didn't want contact. His explanation was simple. He believed I was holding Rachel back from moving to Chicago for a career opportunity and decided removing me from the picture would solve the problem. Rachel told him something during that confrontation that she repeated to me later. "You didn't protect me, you controlled me." That night, Daniel lost something he didn't realize he had been gambling with for years: his sister's trust. If you want to see what happened next, stay with me. And if you like stories that reveal what people try to hide, don't forget to like and subscribe. Rachel and I met in person 2 days after that phone call at a small coffee shop near the river where we used to spend Sunday mornings together. Seeing her again after a year felt strange in the quiet way that returning to an old house sometimes does. Everything looked familiar but slightly rearranged. For a long time, we just talked about what the last 12 months had been like for both of us. The missed birthdays, the assumptions, the slow process of building lives that no longer included each other. Neither of us tried to pretend the lost year hadn't changed things. Some stories don't return to the place they started. But one thing became clear during that conversation. Daniel hadn't just ended a relationship, he had tried to control the direction of someone else's life without asking her. Rachel cut contact with him that week. She told him if he could manipulate something as personal as her relationship, then she could no longer trust him with any part of her future. Months passed after that. Rachel eventually accepted the Chicago job Daniel had once claimed he was protecting, only this time the decision belonged to her. The last time I saw her in Columbus, we were standing beside a rented moving truck outside her apartment building while late afternoon sunlight warmed the pavement. When she hugged me goodbye, she said something that stayed with me long after the truck disappeared around the corner. One message erased 5 years of our lives, but it also showed us exactly who had been quietly controlling the story from the beginning. Daniel thought he was protecting his sister's future. What he actually did was lose his place in it.